Hey yo, it's Dybro, finally here with my week 3 battle going up here against my boy Chess. And I will just switch over here to show the matchup that we have here. So at first you can see right away that a Scarf Shedinja would run through his whole team. It outspeeds Crocodile with X Scissor. I can smack Deoxys with the Shadow Sneak. But I wanted a more competitive game, so I opted to not bring the Scarf Shedinja, just so we can make it a little bit more entertaining and have some back and forth here. But he's got a team with Mega Scizor and Deoxys Speed as his anchors. Deoxys Speed is a pretty unique challenge. It's something that you don't see in a lot of leagues, but it's normally not something I consider very intimidating at all. Actually, considering its high price point being 19 points and tied for the most expensive Pokemon in the league, I was quite sure that it still had access to Psycho Boost, and I would play this entire game under the idea that it had Psycho Boost because I had no clue why this thing would be 19 points without it. But actually, in this matchup, with how offensive my team is and without any kind of Scarfers or something that would be able to outspeed it, it is a tricky matchup. This is about as threatening of a matchup as this Pokemon could possibly have. It struggles against balance and bulk, but it is very good against hyper offense, and hyper offense is exactly what I have, so it will be a unique challenge for me here. Mega Scizor is always something threatening. I do have a few good answers to it. Kyurem and Crocodile Nihilego. These are his next big offensive threats. Out of the group of them, I would say that Crocodile would be the most threatening. Gliscor is able to wall it, but it could run an Aqua Tail Life Orb type of set, and then I would have difficulty defensively responding to it, and I would have to get more crafty. Kyurem is a little bit shut down by Scizor, which I will bring, and Slowking, which I'm also going to bring, so it's not as threatening as some of the other things. He does have Urshifu Rapid, which, again, normally, in most matchups, it's kind of a manageable thing. Thunder Punch is good coverage for it, since bulky waters are more often its response, but as you'll see, I bring a Scizor set attempting to deal with it. Charizard can be threatening, and I actually did not prep too much for Charizard. I thought that Slowking would kind of scare it away, but if you've seen at the start of the video, he would actually bring the Charizard, and that was not ideal to me. And actually, Tauros was something I put a good deal of thought and prep into, because versus my hyper-offensive team with its new coverage in close combat and stuff like that, it actually can hit the majority of my team, so I'm kind of in a unique position here where I'm actually worried about a Tauros. Not something I've had to deal with much in my draft history, but this is the team I'm going to come up with to deal with his team. So, starting off, I have a specially defensive Gliscor. This is kind of the best thing I can bring to wall Tauros. With Protect and the special defensive bulk, I'm able to take Ice Beams, kind of. And that's about, kind of taking them is about as good as something as I can come up with. It's also nice versus other things on his team. I'm running here a set mono attacking Earthquake. That is kind of fitting in my theme of not being overly prepared for the Charizard. I had to put more focus on things like the Urshifu and the Deoxys. Against anything else aside from Charizard, Sword Stance and Earthquake is really all I need for Gliscor to be a threatening matchup. But I'm going to have to, when I do see the Charizard, I'm going to have to play Gliscor as if it can hit the Charizard, and I'll see how he reacts to it. Because he is not likely to assume that I'm on Earthquake. So next up here, I have my Lopunny, and of course this is the big win condition for me, as it is in almost any game, really. Close combat pretty much smacks everything on his team. Except for the Charizard, I'm actually not bringing the coverage for Charizard. As I mentioned, I have quick attack, which hits the Deoxys speed. That's going to be important for me, being able to get Deoxys in range of the Slopany. I don't revenge kill it so easily, but if I can get it worn down, I can get it range quick attack, and then he won't be able to revenge my Lopunny unless he has something like a Scarf or Shifu or something like that. So next up here, I have my Scizor, and this is largely what I have to deal with his Urshifu. It has to rely on Surging Strikes, its end-all be-all move, and it would take a lot of Rocky Helmet damage every time it goes for that. If he's a very offensive set, it actually can still to a KO my physically defensive Scizor, because Surging Strikes is just an OP move. This set is really good against everything except for Charizard. Being physically defensive, I could set up Swords Dances and still, with Bullet Punch, be a threat to break everything aside from it. Dual Wing Beat is the move that hits that and everything. Dual Wing Beat is just, I think, an underrated move on Scizor. I find myself liking it in almost every matchup. Just having access to that powerful of a move, it's almost like having another stab, and it can be very valuable for Scizor with the Technician. Oh, there we go with the screen there. But next up, I have a Heavy Duty Boots Blacephalon. Just a relatively standard set that is very hard to deal with defensively. He would have to be like a specially defensive Charizard, I think, to be able to come in on this. And even if he is, I can kind of throw off Shadow Balls, and every time there's a 20% chance to drop the special defense, which is valuable to me, especially considering it's going to have to click Roost a lot. And it would need to have Earthquake to really do a lot of damage back. Now, this is mostly what I did have for the Charizard. I had my specially defensive Slowking, and this thing is good against almost all of his special attackers. It's nice against Deoxys unless it's a more physically knockoff type of set, which it very well could be. But this covers a good chunk of his team, and it helps me get Lopunny, which is really what I'm going to look to do again and again in this matchup. And my way really... Blacephalon also benefits from this and being able to get in, but mostly I'm just trying to get Lopunny in. The more I can get Lopunny in, the better things are going to go for me in this. And lastly, I am coming in with a Vikavolt. He doesn't have much on the hazard removal side. It would have to be Scizor, which Vikavolt actually comes in on and threatens, so that's not really useful hazard control against Vikavolt. Or it could be Charizard, although I'm not sure if that would want to be defogged. I actually didn't think it would want to come. So he doesn't manage my hazards well. I thought more likely he would want to potentially get up spikes of his own than try to respond to my hazards with control. I always say that the best hazard removal is setting up your own hazards, because you make them remove it, or you just counteract their hazards with your own. So I'll switch over here back to the battle, and we will get the show on the road here. So this battle actually happened a bit ago. Let me get this started. This battle happened a bit ago, so I might have a bit of a time remembering all my moves. But once I see them, I'll definitely be able to remember why I made them, because my mind kind of works in the same ways. I'll be able to have a lot of the same thought processes. It is video, and I have done 2 battles since then. They're all behind because things have been kind of hectic around here. I moved. I've gone through a little bit of shit and stuff coming up, and I have exams and all that shit coming up, so lots of shit here, shit there, stuff to deal with, but I'm going to try to get caught up on these as quickly as I can. I'd like to pump out these in a few days, so it shouldn't be too long, like the last span until the next ones come out. But back to the battle anyway. I thought that Vikavolt would be a good lead here. The worst case scenarios would be, of course, Charizard, or not as much Charizard, more so Nihilego. But if he did lead off with Nihilego, that's a free Slowking teleport into Lopunny, click close combat. So I'd be very content if he did lead off from Nihilego, even though potentially Toxic Spikes could be annoying. Actually, I believe that I switched my Slowking to Heavy Duty Boots, but it came out with leftovers, so maybe I did that in a dream or something. That probably would have been the better set to run in this game because of the hazards he does have with Deoxys and Nihilego. So that is one thing I would fix about the way I handled this game. But I will lead off here with Vikavolt. I'm not sure if he will have any kind of removal. Particularly seeing Deoxys and Nihilego, I think more likely he'll try to set up his own hazards. That was kind of my hunch going in, but it's more affirmed by his team composition. So he's just going to U-turn into Nihilego here, which is fine as I get my webs up. And I'm actually going to go into my Gliscor here, and he's going to try to knock off my Slowking. This was actually a quite devastating turn for me. I decided that instead of going in a Slowking, I would try to make a more aggressive move. I wanted to get my Toxic Orb activated early, and I thought that if I went into Slowking while he got up Toxic Spikes, it might have been an overly passive turn. It might have been a better trade-off for him. And particularly if he used dual hazards, he would have been able to get up both Rocks and T-Spikes while I got Lopunny up. And I didn't think that was as good of a trade-off as bringing in Gliscor and trying to be aggressive right off the bat. But getting knocked off of my Toxic Orb is actually going to be quite significant for me. It's a huge handicap for my Gliscor, and it's also going to make Tauros much more of a problem for me. I believe the biggest reason I wanted to go into Gliscor, aside from being less passive, is if I got my Toxic Orb off right away, that would make dealing with Tauros easier for me, and that was something I was very worried about, so that is what I was trying to do here. He's actually going to switch out into his Charizard. I'm going to go right for Earthquake here, and I didn't get to play it in a way that I could make Charizard afraid of it. I decided to go right for the immediate damage in case he went into Urshifu or even Scizor. It would have been better than clicking the Swords Dance there, especially with not having my Toxic Orb activated. So I'm going to go here into my Slowking. He's going to defog with the Charizard, so he actually did have the hazard removal, which is not what I was expecting. The Charizard's going to go for Mystical Fire, and I'm actually just clicking Scald instead of teleporting because this is the best thing to deal Charizard on paper. And also, he doesn't switch on Scald like at all. His best Scald switch in would be either a really specially defensive Charizard and just leaving it in, or Urshifu, which does not want to get burned. So I just went for the Scald here, and he's actually going to show the Mystical Fire, which is a cool little prep on his end, because that's going to make my Scald not to a KO. And I'm going to teleport here into my Blacephalon, and believing that he would more likely try to bring Nihilego in, I'm going to be aggressive and go right for my Psyshock here, but he's going to roost up, so with this thing being a problem for me, I'm just going to throw off Shadow Balls here and try to drop him. I will get the drop right here, which is nice for me. I would have had a few chances to get it while he roosted off the damage, but it's definitely unfortunate for him that I'm able to get it right away. And it's very fortunate for me that I'm able to get that Charizard down because it's not something I like to face here. So he brings in Deoxys, and I'm actually going to go Slowking here. With Charizard down, Slowking wasn't really doing too much for me. With Nihilego, particularly seeing Knockoff, it's not looking like it's going to be a Specs or a Life Orb set, so I do have Scizor that can respond to it, and also my screwed up, knocked off Gliscor. Slowking not being the most valuable here, and also me very much fearing the Psycho boost, which it does not have access to. I'm just going to throw this thing out, actually. And now I believe I'm going to bring in my Scizor here. He could have had Fire Punch. It wouldn't have killed me, though. I'm very physically defensive. So I'm going to click my wing beat here. I thought he was most likely to go into Scizor or Urshifu, and wing beat would hit either of them quite well. If it did land, but it doesn't, so I guess we're even with the special defense drop there. He's going to U-turn and take my helmet damage. He goes into this as I'm actually Swords Dancing. I didn't know what his Scizor would opt to do. If his Scizor is designed to beat my Scizor, if he would have that confidence. But against any kind of Scizor, if he were to stay in and not click the U-turn, I just wanted to get my Swords Dance off. But here, I'm going to switch to my Gliscor, expecting him to click the Fire Blast. I was pretty sure he would have Fire Blast, considering Scizor is a big chunk of my defensive core, but I would find out later that he did not have the Fire Blast, so I would have actually just been able to hard counter this Tauros with my Scizor, and I didn't even really consider the possibility that Scizor would be a hard counter to this. Particularly with it already wanting to run Ice Beam or Blizzard, I thought it would definitely, being naive and maybe even having special attack investment, I thought it would definitely want to carry the fire move too. But you know what they say about assumptions. When you assume, you make an ass out of you and me. Now, this turn is very unfortunate for our hero here. He's going to miss Blizzard, which isn't the most accurate move in the world, but it's also much less of a chance for it to not hit, so that's very unfortunate for him. And then I'm going to crit him back, and crit absolutely mattered, although it would have been in range of Bullet Punch and Quick Attack anyway. Still at a low health, it could have been useful to take on Bucephalon on mostly, and even Gliscor. Well, the Gliscor right here, which, yeah, so, this is a big turn, and I want to discuss a little bit right now the implications of it. Down the road, I'm going to, with this Deoxys having a life orb, I'm going to try to chip it down and get it in range of my priority by switching around. And I would have had less switch-ins against it and had to play my endgame differently if he was able to take down my Gliscor with the Tauros. So that is the biggest impact of what happened there. He goes into Urshifu here, and I have to go into my Scizor because nothing else is taking this hit, particularly with Slowking down, although I'm sure it had Thunder Punch anyway. He's going to take big damage from the Surging Strikes, and as much as I'd like to save my Scizor because of how nice Bullet Punch is, and in fact just Scizor in general versus the rest of his team, I didn't have much of another play around the Urshifu. In hindsight, I might have liked to sack something off and then either forced it out with Vikavolt or even came in and attacked it hard with Lopunny. That might have been a better move for me with how well Scizor matched up against the rest of his team. But yeah, that's just my thoughts on what else I could have done there. I bring in my Lopunny here on the Nihilego. I'm not thinking, with him being knockoff, I'm not thinking that anything he would carry on this would be able to take me out. So I just go for the Drain Punch there, and I'm going to click it a few times. I didn't want to go for close combat and have him survive, because then he would have had the chance to take me out. He brings in Scizor, and I'm able to take that out with the Fire Punch. But here, again, I'm going to make a huge mistake here of thinking that this thing had Psycho Boost. If I knew that it didn't have Psycho Boost, I would have just been able to rely on Vikavolt to revenge kill this thing. But I thought, why the hell would a non-Psycho Boost Deoxys cost 19 points? But we're going to see why here, is it's actually going to take chunks out of my team. I'm switching around because I need to get it in range of Quick Attack, which I believe does around 35. It can go north and south of 35. So I go in here trying to bait out the Psycho Boost so that Vikavolt would have been able to come back in and get a kill afterwards. But he does not have the Psycho Boost, so he's going to switch out not being able to kill my Vikavolt. Actually, my Blacephalon will be able to come here and kill the Nihilego there with its Side Shock. I am just faster than that thing. And here I will go into my Vikavolt, which, not the best move. I'm still trying to get him to go for the Psycho Boost and try to wear himself down as best as possible. And I will get my Blacephalon out here to take the last of the Life Orb damage. And this should... It's going to come right down to this. It depends on his set. If he is bulky and invested a lot in bulk, he would be able to take a quick attack from here. But if he's a very offensive set with both attack and special attack investment, along with potentially a good amount of speed, particularly for Lopunny, then he would not be able to take quick attack. And a fun little anecdote is that right now in the season, his Deoxys has 9 kills and 0 deaths, and my Lopunny has 9 kills and 0 deaths. So one of these is going to be the MVP of this game, clutch it out at the end, and move on to 10-0 and have the best differential in the league. And it all comes down to this. Lopunny gets the quick attack kill, and I am able to move on to 3-0 here. Definitely not my proudest win, considering that I have played around the thing as if Psycho Boost still existed, and it didn't. And I could have set up myself a much safer win condition had I known that the move was deleted. I'm definitely not the most well-versed on cut moves, particularly since Deoxys isn't something I've seen in any league aside from the defense form, which is crap anyway, and doesn't run Psycho Boost usually. So, not my proudest game. Unfortunately, the Blizzard miss was definitely consequential for him, but that's just a game of Pokemon. And it actually was a quite good game despite that. There was definitely a lot of back and forth both ways. And I think even though each of us probably could have played a bit better, I think we both played overall solid games. And I enjoyed it regardless. And I hope you guys did too. So I want to thank you guys for watching this. Especially with how late it was. I do apologize for that. But have yourselves a good night, my friends.